which required the efforts of some musicians from England who rallied around and got the attention of the international community. But this was not the end. This situation has been repeated time and time again. And for all those listening, I would want to mention something. There is a situation that always captures my thinking in whatever I'm doing regarding the plight and situation of the African in sub-Saharan Africa. Was it in the middle 80s? But there was this South African photographer by name Kevin Carter. Kevin Carter is, or was, because he's late, deceased. But Kevin Carter was known for shooting some very, very disturbing images in war-torn areas, especially on the continent of Africa. And for so long, there was a serious famine brewing in Sudan. And even though the international community had been made aware, there was no sense of urgency, no one was reacting, and this was very disturbing. So this photographer apparently did something that has always been disturbing me, and it's been a question as to how well to answer this. If you get an opportunity, go out online and check out this caption called "The Girl and the Vulture," or maybe the other way around, "The Vulture and the Girl," but under the name Kevin Carter from South Africa. There was apparently this little girl during the long migration from the famine area to an area or a camp that had been set up by the United Nations Refugee Institute, something to that effect. And apparently, due to the weakness of this little girl, she couldn't follow the family. So this weak girl fell and crawled into some sort of a fetus position. And as you would imagine, as usual, the image of the poor, dark-skinned African kid without clothes on and that sort of thing. And as this poor girl lay struggling for life, the photographer Kevin Carter had noticed that there was a vulture that was hopping around and coming closer to this little poor girl. A poor little girl. He later, according to stories, held on for a while until the vulture got closer to the girl, and for all purpose of reasoning, the intent of the vulture was probably to get closer and devour this girl. Now, this photographer, Kevin Carter, waited, held on until the vulture got closer. So he took his shot and got a picture which is so moving, this picture. Now, as some few would know, there is an annual recognition of press photographs around the world. And this picture, this image that Kevin Carter had taken of this girl and the vulture, apparently won the Pulitzer Prize. The Pulitzer Prize. Now, Kevin Carter, with winning this prize, on having won this prize, apparently went back home to South Africa, and through and due to some circumstances, ended up committing suicide 3 months later. I don't want to go into the details as to how he ended up committing suicide. Apparently, something to do with the fact that he was being hunted. There has been a very serious debate about this image as to what the intent of the photographer Kevin Carter was. Now, the dilemma that I have had often when I think about this image, I'm sure was also what others were confronted with. What would you do in Kevin Carter's situation? I'm very sure instinctively the first thing you would want to do would be to chase the vulture away. There are some apparently who argue that he wanted his glory and fame, so he utilized the situation and got the vulture closer and closer. Whatever happened to this girl, nobody knows. And I must remember to add that according to sources, he did eventually chase this vulture away. But without knowing, it is just simply moving. Very, very moving. Why did Kevin Carter do what he did? But you know, the interesting thing is that this same shot, when it got out to the international media, it got the world at large to react. So in the long run, the undignifying situation of a human being captured did finally get a reaction and response from the international community. Think about this. My conclusion has always been that with dark-skinned people from sub-Saharan Africa, it takes the undignifying aspect of people in the international community to react. I just do not understand. And it's fair to say that there are people who react, for sure. But as we usually know of the international community, when they react, many positives come out of it. But this situation with this girl and the vulture is not a sporadic instance. This still goes on today. And as I'm speaking to you right now, there are similar situations going on around the world, but especially in sub-Saharan Africa. And we don't react. Look, there's something that I want to say which might easily be misunderstood. And I want to make this clear. That the loss of a child, the loss of a human being anywhere in the world, through wars, famine, diseases, illness, is as hurtful and uncalled for with any human being on earth, be it from east, west, south, north. And therefore, I'm not trying to make any resemblance here, but I remember one of the incidents that triggered the international community to react in terms of the crisis that has started in Syria was the unfortunate death of a little boy who was washed ashore on a beach in Turkey. This got a very serious reaction from around the world, and it should not happen. And rightly so, it's fair for the world to react. But I would want to add that these situations of this kind, takes place every single day with dark-skinned kids, adults on the continent of Africa, south of the Sahara. It's an everyday thing. Why is it that it is not easily recognized in sub-Saharan Africa with dark-skinned people, but it's easily recognized other places? And this leads back to my concern that the basic human dignity that must be bestowed on every human being is not being bestowed on the dark-skinned population on the African continent. Thank you for listening. I will continue.